in the Skype meeting and let me know that you can't get them. All right, thank you, Tyler. Good deal. All righty, we got a lot to cover today. A lot of things to talk about. The world is crazy. Just doesn't seem to want to slow down a bit. Go over our upcoming dates first. We do have our basic quarterly training next week on the 10th at 9 to noon. We've got 60 some odd people, I think, signed up for that right now. You can sign up for that, I think, on our Finance and Audit resources page. Let me double check that real quick. Nope, I don't see it on there. We need to add that. Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, if you go under training resources, if you want to sign up for that at any time, that link will be working for every quarter that you need to sign up. Sign up for quarterly basic finance training down there, so feel free to fill that out. That does not work. I got to fix that link. All right, should have tested that beforehand. Apparently that links to last quarter's survey or sign-up sheet and did not get updated. So I apologize for that. But anyways, I'll get that fixed right after this meeting, and you're free to join that. I'm trying to think how I can get that out. I have that updated today, and then if you want to attend that sometime tomorrow, you should be able to sign up, or just get the link from anyone. You don't have to sign up to be present. It just helps us kind of know who all is attending from what different agencies and what job classifications, what their role is with your board. We had our Finance and Audit Committee yesterday. We have another one. It's always the Monday before this meeting. We set up a recurring meeting, so it's always the first Monday. I guess periodically the first Monday will not be before the first Tuesday. Every once in a while, I guess the first of the month will be on a Tuesday, not a Monday or earlier. So I guess it's not always the day before this, but generally it is. The next one's March 1st at 3. Feel free to join that or watch it on our YouTube channel if you miss it. The Policy Committee meeting got canceled due to lack of enough to warrant having a meeting, so that'll occur in March at its normally scheduled time. We do have our commission meeting on the 18th at 10 a.m. Again, if you can't attend that in person, we always record those and make those available through our YouTube channel. The next meeting, this group here, the next meeting is March 2nd at 1 p.m. A reminder for all of you that your quarterly reports are due for December quarter ended. They were due over the weekend, which we don't expect you to work over the weekend, so I guess really Monday. Right now there's no penalty for filing those late. We just like to get those in so we can begin analyzing and see if there's any issues going on out there that we need to jump on. So if you haven't submitted that, if you'll do so, and if you have any corrections, at any time you can submit a corrected form. You just select the correct quarter that you're reporting for and mark the corrected box, and we will go in and delete your prior submission and utilize the corrected submission to reflect anything that you've submitted to fix that prior submission. Boy, I'm not speaking clearly today, am I? Galasso training sessions we do have starting on the 16th, and we do have, I think, 80 people signed up for that right now. You can see here that we have basically 2-hour sessions set up for the 16th, March 2nd and 22nd, and April 7th. If you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, you really don't want to attend the fiduciary activities or the GASB leases sessions because they really will bore you. They don't affect you or your financials. If you're a government entity, you're going to want to attend the ANA update, the fiduciary activities, and the GASB leases. And for those of y'all that have foundations or HUDs or anything like that that you work with, You probably do want to attend the FASB leases as well. I will tell you, FASB and GASB do not have the same accounting for leases. So if you think you can take GASB and just apply it to every agency, your nonprofits and your board, you're mistaken. So there are some nuances to these, and so you need to attend them both and make sure you know what you're doing so you're ready for your auditor. At this point, we have 16 boards that have not signed up to attend this. Many privates also have not signed up, and we're missing a good many of our auditors as well. So please share this information with your audit firms, your CPAs that you're working with. I mean, a lot of them like free CPE, so worst case scenario, they better not bill you to attend. This is continuing ed for them, and it's something that they should be taking anyways to keep their knowledge up. So don't let them bill you for attending this session. This has nothing to do with servicing you as a client participating in this. So I would share that information with your auditors and also other fiscal staff that you may have at your board that you want to start grooming and get them into the loop on accounting standards and different things that they might want to cut their teeth on. I mean, it's always a good opportunity to learn, and you learn through repetition. So as you go through hearing this stuff, yeah, they may not apply it to their daily jobs right now, but just having that foundation or base to call on later and build out your team and your competencies as a team is really something I would recommend. Now, last year we had residential directors and stuff attending this. I tell you what, if you attend these and you're not in the fiscal role, you're going to really feel like you're wasting your time. I felt really bad for several of the folks that were attending because they were in over their head and it really didn't apply to their jobs. We do breakout sessions where you have conversations with other folks that are attending, and you come back to the live session to kind of share. And many of those breakout sessions were really not very productive because the folks in there were programmatic folks and really didn't understand anything at all related to what was going on, and I don't blame them. It's very technical data, so there's nothing against them attending, but just if they have a lot going on, you might not want to recommend they attend these. We have, and you can sign up for those also with the link, and that link does work on our Finance and Audit Resources page. You do have to sign up for these because Melissa does a Zoom invite and she needs to know who to invite. You can only get in by invitation. So if you have folks that you want to attend at your agency, each of you need to register unless you plan on attending from one computer. And if you attend from one computer, only one of you will be able to get CPE because it's based on your answers to various questions during the session. So if you've got multiple people needing CPE, each person will have to log in with their own link. I think I covered everything there. It's no cost to anybody. We're not charging anything this year. Last year we charged $50 for CPAs. We were trying to first offset some of our cost, and we were offering a meal, which we ended up not doing because we had to hold it virtually due to COVID starting. And CPE is offered, so that's pretty cheap CPE that's free. So anyways, if you'll get the word out, I'd appreciate it. All right, we have a private providers fee-for-service meeting on the 4th from 3 to 4. I am getting some calls and emails from private providers. I really like to ask y'all to kind of be patient or maybe attend one of our open mic sessions. We have one today after this meeting at 4. And you can get in there and ask questions if you want as a private, if you're chomping at the bit to get some answers. Honestly, when you hear the changes that impact you, you're going to see that it's just directing who you send stuff to differently and stopping doing a variety of things. It's not a big deal. So I understand the worst case scenario is you send it to the board, send a bill somewhere it shouldn't go, and it gets forwarded on to us instead of them paying it. So I mean, it's not worst case scenario is you're wasting a little bit of time, and of course, if we wouldn't have made these changes, you would have been wasting time into perpetuity. So It's not that big of a deal, the changes, but anyways, if you want to jump in this afternoon, you can. We have that on the 4th from 3 to 4, and I think everybody that attends that should be case management companies, EI companies, residential, pretty much any private provider is going to want to attend that. We also have our open mic opportunities, which I was just referring to. We have 4 more scheduled. We had one Friday, this past Friday, but today from 4 to 5. And we have one Friday, 1 to 2. And then on the 8th, I don't remember what day of the week that is. I'm guessing it's a Monday maybe. 3 to 4. And then on the 12th from 1 to 2. So please pop in those. It's just an opportunity for you to join and hear what others are asking or ask your questions. Anything that comes up in those sessions, we're going to summarize in an FAQ and release those questions and answers. I do have my notes from the meeting Friday. I just haven't had a chance to type those up with the Finance and Audit Committee yesterday and this meeting today and other things going on around here. So I do anticipate after today's session that I will have an FAQ document I can release and make public. Linda Tyler, I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself, but I've asked Linda to speak about the Human Service Provider Finance Conference that's coming up on April 22nd. So I wanted her to get on here and maybe share a little bit of information related to what they've got going on. Linda, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, I think you just got unmuted. Yeah, try again, Linda. Let's see if I can help you out with that. Ben, can you unmute her on your end?
I've done what I can.
Yeah, Linda, you are unmuted, so I don't know what's going on. Holly, did you want to speak?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we were just going to let everybody know it's April 22nd. We're not real sure of times just yet, but so kind of book the whole day. We're thinking 8:30 to 3, but we're not real sure. We're meeting tomorrow to kind of tie down topics and times, and we'll get back to y'all on that.
Was that Holly speaking?
Yes.
Are you welcoming folks that are not members of your organization?
Yes.
Okay, and when they register, I guess they maybe have a little bit of extra charge since they're not a member, right?
Yeah, we haven't discussed all the details yet, but we'll be getting that out soon.
Okay, and then I guess you have capacity issues as well that y'all will be dealing with since you have to do social distancing, and you'll have all that information, I guess, available as well.
Yes, right now I believe Brooklyn said they can do 108 and successfully social distance. So 108 is our max number, I believe.
That's excellent. All right. Thank you for sharing, and we'll when you get the information and packet ready to send out, we'll be glad to send that out for you. And we post it on our page also. All right. Thank you, Holly. Okay. Under old business, just a couple points on BAM BNI, and hopefully in a couple months we're not talking about this anymore, but right now it still is fresh paint. I've got Deborah Leopard on. She's going to talk to us a little bit about contracts, but I'm not going to get into that since she's going to do that for me. We need to make sure that everybody gets their desal data done and submitted and approved by the close of business on the 5th. If you want to get paid in the past, if you missed that date, really the only issue was we didn't get paid. We might have to wait another month to get our money, but there was no impact on the provider. So at this point there is, and if your fiscal people have not been involved in that process, you might want to involve them. They're checklist driven and deadline driven typically. Plus they need to be aware of what revenue to record and project. So please make sure you're monitoring that. And we will run reports on this end. that we will pay you from. So there's nothing you have to do on your end at all other than submit your information like you always have. So hopefully, and again, if you want to jump on and ask questions at 4, feel free to do so about any of this stuff I'm going over. We still haven't sent out a survey for the over-enrolled. I still need to do that, but for those of y'all that have not heard this or it's not familiar to you, we wanted to make sure as we flipped to fee-for-service that we addressed or identified people that have been coming to the day program that DDSM was not funding. As we flip these folks, if they're not in a band, they're potentially overlooked. In the past, you were serving them for free as an over-enrolled person and basically slot sharing with another person. But of course, if we take the band back, which we have, there's really no slot to share per se because you're not getting paid for that other person that's not attending that day. So we had to find a mechanism to pay you for these people. The issue we've run into is we have found not a lot, but a little bit of situations where providers were serving folks in the day program but didn't have them indicated as such in CDSS, and maybe even weren't even putting them on the DSAL, handwriting them in if they weren't on the DSAL printed or pre-populated. So there's people out there you guys are serving that we're not even aware of. We're going to ask that you guys identify these folks because, again, we have our own list of who we think you're serving that's not funded, but we have found that there are people we're not even aware of that you're serving in day services, and we don't want to put in a system where basically you contact them or their family and say, look, we don't get paid for you anymore, sorry, we can't serve you. So we're going to make sure that's addressed. So to fix this now, though, as far as to make sure you're getting paid, make sure they're in CDSS receiving day services. Debbie, I'm going to put you on the spot, or maybe Carol's on here. If they're not, if you miss them, I think there's a log or something you can turn in after the fact. Not an error correction form. That's fixing something they did that is wrong.
Correct.
Hence the error.
Correct.
Not billing is not an error.
Correct.
So there's another log, and Carol, are you online? Or LaKenya, one of y'all? Or do you know the answer? There's some log that...
No, we have a form, and I can send it to you. It's out there
finance manual.
Under the finance manual for adding people.
That aren't on the pre.
That are not on it, that's correct.
Right. Okay. Let's see, let me get through this first, and then I'll get back to the question, Susan. So, again, the reason with that survey is just to really make sure we understand what we're getting into, because all these folks are state funded. We're not going to have a waiver slot for them. There is a process we're looking at here to make sure that we're getting everybody in waiver that should be in. I've been working with Lori on that. So, there may be a situation where these people do become, we may be able to give them a slot. And there's reasons for that we could talk to Lori about as to why that would occur. The loan program, we proposed that to the Finance and Audit Committee yesterday. I did approve the recommendations with a few changes. We'll take that to the Commission on the 18th. If you want to know more about that program, you can listen to our Finance and Audit Committee video. I know that's like very, it's like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Anyways, you have to be really bored and,
It's like
and driven to listen to it. But anyways, it's just hard watching recorded videos back. But was it towards the end of this? I think it was middle to the end of the agenda, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was after all the Kevin stuff, right?
Okay.
The procurement stuff, yeah. So it was toward the end.
So we anticipate the Commission approving this on the 18th, but basically, and we'll share that with you all as soon as we get that approved. There's really no secrets there. The main issue that I need to point out here is because of the recommended structure and the approval process for the loan, we need to ensure that providers project far enough advance of their cash shortage that they initiate this process, that they don't end up with no cash in the bank and we're unable to provide you funds. So in other words, the recommendation made was that each board's application would come through the Finance and Audit Committee and or the Commission, depending on the timing of it, for their approval. One thing that we talked about in executive staff meeting this morning is we are going to make that packet non-board identifiable, because the name of the board and what county they serve really should not enter into a funding decision made by the commission. And so we feel that's fair, is that we'll process all that here internally, but when we take it to them, our thoughts at this time are, for their protection and yours, that really doesn't need to be shared in a public setting, and it's really irrelevant to the decision that needs to be made. So that's the angle we're headed as staff. We have to see how that goes on the 18th, because we did not discuss that yesterday, but we were unanimous in executive staff this morning that was the appropriate approach. So begin looking at your projected cash flows. You need to have a cash flow projection. Of course, if you have plenty of cash, you don't need to waste time doing that unless you need it for another reason. But if you're anticipating that you're going to have a cash shortage from the fee-for-service or otherwise, because you already were low on cash before this happened, part of the requirement is going to be that you do a cash flow anyways for us. The goal here is we really need you to identify the problem as soon as possible so that all these pieces can fall in line as soon as possible so we can get you money. Debbie, if you will speak quickly to what hoops we have to jump through to get a provider paid. It's not like we have a checkbook here or we can just log in and initiate a payment. So best case scenario, you're talking, even if we know today,
I couldn't get you funds within a week. We couldn't. The STO has made major changes with regards to paying out payments, from going net 30 and us having to jump through hoops to get you paid as soon as we get things processed or within a 48-hour time period. But we're looking at a week. Once you've submitted all your paperwork, it's all been approved, and it's gone before the Finance and Audit Committee. So in my head, I'm saying you need to be looking at where you are a month from now.
At least
2 months, 3 months from now, to be asking for money right now. And the reason that I say that is for the hoops and everything that we're having to jump through to get from today to getting money put in your bank account.
Okay. All right, so more information will be forthcoming in that area as we get it approved. Also, under B&I Flip, we are doing substantial revision of the finance manual, Chapter 10. We're very, very close to a point where we can release that and we'll publish it. I imagine we will add it to our finance and audit page, put it in business tools, and send you an email to tell you where to access those documents and that they're available. There are significant changes to those documents. Some of it already need to be changed. For example, not talking about TheraP at all and talking about, service notes and CDSS or wherever they were kept before. STS, I don't know. I can't keep up with all those acronyms, but one of those. It already required some update. So anyways, that's close to being done, and it'll be a good reference point for you because it goes over all the billing processes with CERB. Also, all the materials for our trainings are available on the Finance and Audit Resources page. If you go down under training, I think it's under Training Resources, and there's a subsection for fee-for-service stuff. You'll find the videos and also the handouts down there. So check that out if you have a lot of questions. I know it was a lot of information shared in a short period of time, so maybe if you watch the video again, I'm sorry. I know you don't want to listen to me more than you have to, but you'll have to go through and listen to that again, possibly clear up some questions. If not, again, we still have these open mic opportunities. I'm going to get this question from Susan, Deborah, and then if you'll be ready, I'm going to kick it to you here in a minute. Let's see, question or comment is, I'm assuming that is day services regarding the desal. Obviously, we want the res logs done by the 5th also, but it really makes a huge difference in day. Is this accurate? That is accurate. So the submission of these documents permits us to bill and recoup our revenues up until this point when a provider was late. For example, when we were down to $157,000 a couple years ago at year end, we had a provider that was $1.2 million in residential billing that didn't turn their log in on time because somebody was on vacation. I mean, that almost bankrupted DDSN. Like, I can lose my job for going negative, and so could Debbie and Kelly and Mary. So, I mean, it was a big deal, and they weren't the only one, but I mean, theirs alone was $1.2 million. And so, yes, the desal, the fact that date is there not only allows us to bill timely, but also to pay you timely. So if you miss that date, the way the system is working right now is it'll go back. I don't know how IT did this, but they know somehow they can go back and recoup. Let's say when you run the February billing by the 5th business day in March, if you missed anything in January, it'll automatically pick it up and add it to your February bill. So you will get paid for those items, and currently we have no process in place and don't intend to have one at this time to address people that don't get their billing in on time. So that's a big deal if you're low on cash and are really relying on getting paid. Ultimately though, as we get further and further down the road, I've mentioned this before, I would like to see us get to a point where we can pay weekly or bi-weekly to you all. I just don't know what all that means in regards to our systems. We have a lot of systems issues here. For you all that haven't heard this, we have archaic systems that are going end of life, and we are working really hard on replacement strategies for all of these systems, including TheraP as part of it, as part of our solution, if you will. Also Power BI, which is a Microsoft product. Business intelligence is what BI stands for. So when we look at our ability to implement things, we are not going to spend 20 staff's time, 100 hours of our time that's very critical right now on some old system that's not even going to be around in 6 months or a year. So our ability to address and change some of these things are delayed because of that. Had it not been for those being archaic systems and our ability to continue to maintain them, then that would not be a waste of time, and we could possibly get that done. But until we get moved off those systems, we're kind of stuck in our current process. So did that clarify your question, Susan? I think I clarified it.
Can we add one thing?
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Just remember that your invoice for your day supports is created from the logs that are submitted and approved. So if you don't get all of your logs, not just submitted, but approved, an invoice will not populate. So you'll be waiting an entire month for that following month's invoice, and you'll have 2 months of dates of service on there. So it's just a reminder. It's more important now than anything. If you only have 1 or 2 people that do this, make sure that you got a backup plan for when people are out sick or when people are on vacation.
Yeah, just to recap too on this, with that desal, if you are the service provider, you're going to get paid from the desal for at-home units. So in other words, if you're a private provider providing day services and you've typically billed the financial manager for those units, That's going away. If you report your units for job coach, support employment individual, sorry, Ben, I know you get on to me about using the old terms. Old school, I guess, here with all those old things, people calling it service coordination instead of case management still. Anyways, I digress. If you're a service provider, our system now is set up where it's going to grab all your day activities for all your at-home people, that non-residential folks. So if they're a financial manager, residential person, but they come to your day program and you're a private provider, we'll address that in our meeting on the 4th. But that arrangement that you're already doing will stay in place. Nothing changes. It's just you're just basically stopping billing them for your at-home people. But if you've previously billed one of our providers that holds bands B or I for at-home people, they no longer have B and I money to pay you. And so when we run our reports, it'll be run for every service provider, and we'll pay direct off of that, including for employment individual. And there's nothing you need to do on your side. We just run a bunch of reports here, and you'll get paid. And if you don't get paid, call Debbie Wilson.
Just one last thing. If the log doesn't get submitted, we don't have the ability at this point to create an invoice for you mid-month. It will wait till the whole.
That's part of our archaic system problem.
That's correct.
All right. So with that being said, wait a minute. There's another question, Deborah. I thought Debbie just said that they have to be approved by us. No, the service provider has to submit and approve the log. If you are formally a band manager and you no longer have the band for that person, there's nothing you need to do other than monitor it if you're the case management entity to ensure the service is properly authorized and it's on their plan and all that good stuff. The financial manager doesn't need to do anything, but the service provider does. Does that clarify that, Ralph? Deborah Leopard, if you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and start talking, I'll monitor the questions and circle back around if we get additional ones.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This won't take too long. I've just wanted to update you on what's going on with contract amendments and what to look for over the next week or so. I have finished the amendments, the capitated amendments for the band increase, and for all of the Husky residential increases. Those will be going out starting tomorrow morning, so check your email for those. If the increase was under 200,000, then that will be on your next payment schedule. If it was over 200,000, we have to wait for commission approval on those, so it will be on the following payment schedule. So keep an eye on that amount, and you'll know when to look for it. I'm also updating the state-funded community supports just to change the cap on that. Those will be coming out here probably starting tomorrow as well. My next project is I have to do the QPL residential amendments to get their rates updated. And then I will be doing your Band B and I catch up, which was a true up for your mid-November to December 31st Band B and I payments. And that will be your next amendment that will be coming after you get all the stuff that I'm sending tomorrow. And then after that, I will get back on the regular residential amendments. We got kind of a bottleneck here, but the most important thing to me was to get you the band increase, which would be the largest amount of money going out, and then work my way back from there. So as always, if you have any issues or have questions, please just contact me and we'll work through it. You can get me by phone or the contracts email, and I'll be happy to help you.
Thank you, Deborah. She's been working really hard trying to get all this done. It's a lot of manual, tedious stuff, so thank you, Deborah, for all you're doing. Craig Bird asked about if we submit a desal if there are no units. Yes, you need to continue to do that because, again, an unsubmitted log with units that should have been reported looks identical on our side as a log that there was no service and it just wasn't submitted. So in other words, when we run a report and we say, okay, now tell us everybody that hasn't turned their decels in, how are we supposed to know if you didn't turn one in because you had no service, or you didn't turn one in because you forgot or overlooked it? So yes, we need you to continue that. That process and expectation has not changed. All right, Andrew, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, buddy, it's up to you now. You're on the generator remote start switch.
Yeah, just want to. This is for generators. If you own a generator, there are have been some updates in the codes now, and I say that it's a relatively old update, but we've got a lot of old generators out there, and we had at one of our regional centers, PD Center, DHEC came through and said that they haven't cited this in the past, but it's something they're going to start looking at here in the near future. So we were trying to be proactive on it, and Chris thought it was a good idea to let everybody know about it. But if you've got a generator that's been installed, before that's older than 10 years old, it's likely to not have a manual shutoff switch on it, and that is required by the code these days. It's more of a fire code than a building code, so it would be required on existing units. And we're seeking bids now to go and put one on all of our generators on all of the regional centers, and I think it's probably a good idea for people to look at it on your own generators. They're not real pricey to install. Usually, probably about less than $1,000, right at less than $1,000, $800-900 or something like that per generator. But it's something that DHEC is going to be looking at in the near future. So it's probably a good idea to be proactive with something like that. The purpose for the switch is if your generator were to catch fire or something like that, you could shut it off from a remote location and not have to actually go up to the generator that's on fire to shut it off. So, again, if you got any questions about what you need to look for, or if you want to run your quotes by me, please absolutely get in touch with me, and I'll help you out through it. But that's really what I've got with regards to the generator manual switches. So.
All right, next topic, yours too, Andrew.
Yeah. Next topic is the sprinkler systems and fire alarm systems for CTH2s. Chris is always looking for ideas to kind of get ahead of the game when it comes to facilities and budgeting and anything that's going to cost money in the long run. We want to kind of take a look at. And had a situation. This isn't an uncommon situation, but it popped up again last week. But a provider contacted me with an issue about the fire marshal, citing them some problems with their fire alarm system. And when we started looking at everything, the first thing that I realized was that their fire alarm system wasn't even required in that type of facility, or the fire alarm system they had wasn't even required in that type of facility. So my recommendation in the end was to remove it and put in there what was required, and that would eliminate a lot of the problems they were having with the fire marshal. But if you've got a CTH2 and you've got a full-blown commercial fire alarm system in there, like with a panel, a pull station, strobes, anything like that, you've got more fire alarm system than what you need in a CTH2. Now, there's a lot of reasons that could exist. A lot of times facilities have downgraded their licensing, or in other situations, older CTH2s probably were required to have something like that when they were originally built. But right now, there's in a CTH2, the only fire alarm system that is required is hardwired and interconnected smoke detectors, which is no different than what you would have in your home. So you don't need a full panel, strobes, pull stations and stuff like that in your CTH2s. What you're going to have, if you do have something like in there, you got annual monitoring costs that you're going to be paying for. You've got annual inspection costs that you're going to be paying for. And of course, the maintenance on those systems is much more expensive than just smoke heads. So in the long run, I think you'd be better off to look at removing systems like that if you have them in your CTH2s. Also with sprinkler systems, again, changes in the code, changes in licensing have led to a lot of facilities having more sprinkler system than what's needed in their homes, particularly in a CTH2. If you've had a facility that's downgraded from a CRCF or an ICF to a CTH2, you've probably got a commercial sprinkler system in that thing. Big 6-inch iron pipe coming into the building, 4-inch iron mains running through your attic. So just a big system that you don't need. In a CTH2, you can put in a plastic pipe residential system that, again, is not required to be annually inspected. The maintenance on them is way cheaper than the commercial systems. So again, in the long run, I think it's best to remove those type of systems if you've got them. Again, particularly in these situations, please contact me if you're looking to move forward on something like this, or if you've got any specific questions on what you need to be looking for, or whether or not you can do something. The sprinkler systems, particularly because there's a lot of different types of systems out there, so I just want to make sure that you start looking at the right one when you start getting quotes and stuff. But again, just the main point being that if you got a home, you want to make sure that you got the right type of systems in there. Other words, in the end, it's going to cost you more than what it would if you had the correct systems. So that's really all I've got. Please contact me if you got any.
Yeah, some of this has come up too as boards are run in situations where they have sprinkler heads that have to be fixed or other types of expensive maintenance items, and it's actually more cost effective just to look at replacing that entire system out with the new one, similar to what Andrew's talking about. But I do want to say, do not take anything he has said as DDSN saying you need to take these systems out. You need to consider your consumers in each house, consult your local folks, your local fire marshals and so forth. What I've asked him to do is share basically the regulations and how DDSN is addressing these things on our end. We do not pretend to know every single situation out there that you're dealing with, and so these are good ideas to consider, but please do your own due diligence to make sure that you're not putting your consumers in harm's way. But again, as I stated, some of these pipes may be leaking. They may have sprinkler heads that need updating. You may have panels that have issues. So when you're dealing with that, not only do you have the recurring inspections and so forth he spoke to, but it may be more cost effective if you did the analysis. Now, Andrew, we've got a host of questions here. Elizabeth wants to know if we can send this out in a memo so that they can share with their maintenance staff. I think we can do that, right, Andrew?
Yeah, if they want to contact me directly, please tell them to give me a call. My number's out there. And I can walk them through whatever particular situation they're looking at it. But yeah, like Chris said, I wouldn't go into it without some type of expert on your side. Whether you want to give me a call or get your own fire protection engineer involved. There's definitely some. You want to make sure you go about this the right way. But it is something that's worth looking at, I think, in a lot of the CTH2 homes that have more system than they need. So.
All right. Elizabeth also says, it sounds like this is a better topic for a different meeting rather than a finance meeting. Well, I did invite all your maintenance people if they're in SPM, so I made an effort to get them here. Secondarily, my experience is most finance people supervise the maintenance department, and so does the executive director, so it can easily be shared information. We're just trying to be beneficial and helpful to the providers, sharing information that you're probably not accustomed to getting from DDSN. I don't know that we have enough topics to set up a maintenance meeting on a recurring basis, but all I'm trying to do is, as I run across things and I'm like, hey, that's something that our providers need to hear. I'm just trying to do a good job to keep folks informed. And if we need to set up a meeting similar to that, we can certainly consider it if there's ever enough topics to do so. But at this point, DSN's not issuing any mandates or any type of new guidance. We're just trying to share cost-saving ideas. In fact, you don't have to do a single thing with what we've said. The remote start switch is a health and safety issue that for whatever reason, is just now being cited, and we felt like it was prudent on our part to let everybody know that we're getting cited for it so that you guys can be aware of that on your end. But certainly if you want to put your maintenance person in touch with Andrew, he's a very accessible guy and willing to talk to whomever. And maybe based on that, Andrew says, yeah, we need to set up, some kind of recurring quarterly meeting or something, but I'll leave that up to him. I supervise Andrew, which is why this topic is in a finance meeting. The question from Ralph was if we're going to pay for this for the generator switches for DSN-owned facilities. I would say, Ralph, if you have generators on those facilities and they meet the criteria where they should have been installed, I think that is something we need to look at. So, Andrew, we need to make sure we track that project internally and follow up on that. Are you aware of generators installed with our facilities we own?
Yeah, well,
Andrew?
we've got a master list out there that have all the statewide DES and generators.
With generators?
Yes.
Good question, Ralph, and I don't disagree. We need to look at that. And as Susan asked, is Andrew saying that it needs to be a remote manual turn-off switch? In the memo we send out, I'm actually going to provide you a link to a video. I had to go out and find some materials on this myself so I could understand what Andrew was telling me. In a nutshell, basically, you have to have a kill switch far enough away from the generator so that if that generator catches fire or there's a fire in proximity of the generator and you can't access it, that you can kill the generator remotely. So I don't know if there's a distance requirement or anything like that. The pictures I saw were like little, kind of like when you're in a class in a school where you got the little tiny hammer and a glass enclosure where you break the glass out and push the button. That's kind of what the pictures were I saw. Andrew, did you have anything to add to that comment I made?
Yeah, there are some requirements. I think it's 20 or 25 feet or something like that. But yeah, we can. I'd have to pull the code up to get all the specifics on it. But there are some requirements to it. So.
And then Jason wanted to asked about HUD CTH2s. Is there any unique requirements to your knowledge that HUD has outside of the regular fire marshal that we're citing?
Not that I'm aware of, unless Medicare, Medicaid has some type of requirements, but I'm not aware of any. Typically I think they just fall underneath the local municipality of wherever it's being built. So.
Can we check into that? Is there a source for us to check on that, Andrew?
Who would be? I guess my first question would be who would be the authority in a situation like that? Over a HUD home.
Jason. Jason, can you? Yeah, I'll ask Jason. Can you email us maybe any contact you might have on the REACT side or someone that's familiar with the HUD facilities and comes out and reviews them for you as far as this kind of thing?
I get my question. Who's issuing the certificate of occupancy for the HUD homes? If it is the federal agency, then yeah, you'd want to check with them. But if it's just local officials that you're relying on to issue final occupancy certification, then I'd go to them. They're whoever is issuing that final CO is going to be the one making that call. So.
But still send that, Jason, please. Thank you, Andrew. Do you have anything else to add before you mute yourself again?
I think I'll give my phone number real quick, 803-898-9423. Again, my number's out there, but it's 803-898-9423 if anybody wants to contact me with any questions. So. Great.
Thank you. You can drop off if you want, or you can hang on if you'd like to hear the rest of this. All right. The next item is this day services, 60% recoupment for October to December, and the fee-for-service retro payment for the same period of time. I'll be working on that and hopefully have that computed before the end of February. And then, as we told you previously in our December meeting when we passed out that grid, we anticipate this being on one of your March payment schedules. I want to reiterate kind of how we calculated this because a couple people have asked me, said they can't come up with the number themselves. You never could. I mean, it would be phenomenal if you could come up with this number because you don't have all the pieces you need. So basically, just to reiterate, when we did the 50% recoupment back in this, when this thing all started, if you'll remember, actually, I think it was Linda Tyler recommended that we look at the initial approach to this. I agree. If we had gone down that road, would have impacted providers unfairly. And so the suggestion put forth was, can we look at pre-COVID levels of what every provider was contributing towards the day program? Since what we're looking at is your lost revenue at the state level, that made all the sense in the world. If we're saying this is what we were billing, this is what we're now billing, the measuring stick should be consistent. And if we're going to look at what we're billing, we would look at each board's contribution to that number. All right, well, first of all, you don't have the ability to compute that. So that number was used for the 50% recoupment. It was used for the first batch of the 60%, and it's used for the next batch of 60%. The next thing we have that you don't have is how much day program revenue are we losing. So what I'm running is a statewide DSAL report. I'm comparing, I compared July, August, and September 2020 to the same period of time in 2019, adjusted for the number of weekdays in each month so that we didn't have any craziness there, because one day is actually a lot of money. So if I'm off by one day, that number would be artificially incorrect, or would be incorrect, not artificially. So getting every weekday identified for each month so that we have apples and apples, and then we'll do the same thing for October to December. We compare that to our current revenues that we're running for the same exact period, using the same exact reports, using the same exact numbers of weekdays based on the calendar, considering holidays. I'm using the state holidays for holidays closed. A lot of the boards out there aren't closing on state holidays, and so I'm actually shooting myself in the foot a little bit by using our state holidays, because we're, believe it or not, off more than I think we should be as state employees, but hey, I'll take it. So I'm using that, and then we're just simply applying. So let's say we run that number and it's $4.5 million. We're applying 60% to that, and then we're applying your percentage as a percentage of the statewide number to that number. So you really don't have any of these pieces. If you're trying to tie it out to a number that Debbie and I gave you earlier in the year, where we were trying to give you a way to estimate it so you could start accruing this on your books, so you would at least have an estimate on your side. We knew when we gave you that number that it was going to be way high. I mean, first of all, it's 50% day program loss, and we're not going to pay fee for service back for those units. Man, I am getting lit up by somebody. Somebody doesn't like what I'm saying, or I don't know. Nope. Junk calls. All right. It just keeps ringing. So anyways, we have maintained the same exact approach that the commission approved back when this thing first started. We have not moved off of that approach. And by giving you fee for service back for every single unit that your day program that you build, if you think about it, we're paying twice for that day program, because number one, I've already decreased my day program loss for the fact that you have generated day program billing. So it's already not in the 60% because it never entered the equation. Now I'm coming back again and going, okay, well, all these day program units that were billed, let's pay everybody for them. Well, why am I doing that? I've already paid you once by not taking it out of the recoupment. Well, that's why we went up to 60% and why we went fee for service, so that folks would have an incentive to reopen. And so when I ran the numbers, we recouped 7%, 7 of band Bs and Is for July to September, 7%. Providers were left with 93% of band Bs and Is. That's pretty generous when you consider we're losing, $30 million in day program revenue. So that's where all of our FMAP's going. I just got a FOIA request from another provider, actually the same provider again. I've got to go in and answer the FMAP question for the third time. But when I answer that question, a lot of our money's going to fill in this day program hole, as well as the 60-day vacancy that we bumped from 30, plus all the paused disenrollments where we're still funding all these Bs and Is, but there's no service, and they should have lost their Bs and Is. We've got all kinds of issues that we're using those funds for. So anyways, that's how that's computed. And if you ask me to give you detail, I can give you those details with the formulas, but it's not going to be for your board per se. I mean, it's just a bunch of statewide numbers aggregated in a logical, systemic, fair manner, in my opinion. All right. Let's see. Are private providers going to see a day program? No, private providers are not going to see a day program recoupment because they are fee for service. They have only been paid for what they delivered. The only thing over and above that they got was 20% absences. So since they're in fee for service world, there's nothing to recoup. The purpose of the recoupment is to take back funds that were put out there in the provider world that weren't being spent in accordance with what they were intended to be. And in fact, if we ran the 80% attendance rule that's in the contract, providers would pay us a ton more back than they are. So we, in my opinion, and I try and be fair, I try and look at it from your angle, our angle. I mean, I can't even think of a more fair way to have done this. I feel like every single angle of this favors the provider. And I don't mind saying that, and I don't have a problem with that. I just think providers may not recognize, if we carried a heavy stick, what we would have done and what we could have done and what we were thinking about doing is taking the day program out of B's and I's and just that's about $8,000 in each band. I did this whole calculation, and it's like, okay, how much day programs in B's and I's? Let's take all that back. And then we'll pay fee for service. You would not have liked that number, I can assure you. It was massive. And so we landed on a more fair approach. But if you think about the way it really could have been done and really made all the sense in the world, is just simply take the day program out of the band. I mean, if that's the component that's not being delivered, take it out and pay me some other way. And that would have been a huge, huge hit to the providers, which is why we didn't go that direction. Like, we got to come up with something else. Let's see. So as far as day program on weekends, again, if you look at the way the computation is done, the question is, do we consider day units on weekends? The way the computation is done, again, we err in your favor because we're only considering weekdays that are not holidays. If I added additional weekdays for weekends, I mean, for the whole entire provider network, because I have no clue who's delivering all this on weekends, the outcome would have been very distorted and not fair or defensible, in my opinion. So if you look at the computation, how much day program did we lose? That has nothing to do with what day of the week it was, because we're looking at total units reported during the month. If you look at your utilization prior to COVID, again, it's your utilization, which would have been based on your desals, which would have been based on your W-99 data or your claims. So again, if you were billing it, it's in that number. So no, I don't think there's any impact from that. Um, Thank you for the information. Well, thank you, Laura. Unfortunately, we're doing day services, just not in day program setting, because day program cannot be open. I appreciate that you do not take back day services because we are still paying staff. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that was a part of, if you remember, I did that survey and asked you for all your staffing and different things like that. And really, when you guys filled that out, it enlightened us to, again, I mean, we would have bankrupted the provider network. If we'd have gone that route, you guys would have been hit, and worse than or equal to the private providers, which I hate to even say that because the poor private providers, when they shut down, their revenues dried up, period. And so if they wanted to keep their staff on, they had to use their reserves, go take out a line of credit, use PPP, close their doors, lay people off. So, we've got two different sets of folks that were impacted drastically differently when it came to this. So, anyways, yeah, I agree. The providers, we wanted to make sure that day programs would remain open and be a viable resource when we get out of this craziness. We didn't want a bunch of day programs decimated where they weren't there for our consumers once they can come back. All right. The next item is the PPP loan program, round 2. I'm sure you all know about that, but I'm just making you aware of that availability. Again, it's up to you to determine if you're eligible. Just because I mention it doesn't mean I'm telling everybody on this call, 116 people, that all of a sudden now you're eligible for PPP. That's not for me to determine. My goal is to inform you of resources, and so that is open till March 31st. You can find information about that online if you're not aware of it. Go check it out, and if you're eligible and you need it, I recommend that you take advantage of it. All right, independent contractor rules. Again, we're trying to be more than just sharing information about the normal, same old stuff. I'm not in any way an expert on Fair Labor Standards Act, and it's not really my responsibility to share this information, but I feel that's something I should do. So I really don't know a lot to tell you other than you guys might have seen, a lot of you are in Knuckles Group and different SHRM and different newsletters you may get, but the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division issued a final rule on independent contractors, and it takes effect March 8th. My understanding is in reading their news release that they've basically made it easier to determine if someone's an independent contractor or not. My personal experience is in the provider network that there's a lot of misclassified people that are independent contractors when they really should be part-time employees. I don't feel like they passed the 20-factor IRS test before this final rule, honestly. But boards, that's a business risk you have to take. You have to decide, am I willing to roll the dice? And the issue is you're tattling on yourself. Every time you file 1099s, you're alerting the IRS, hey, look at here. These are all the people I'm paying as independent contractors. Why don't you come audit me and see if I'm doing this right? So you're basically ratting yourself out every tax season. And now that they've separated this into the 1099 NEC, it even gives them more. Just the fact that you filed an NEC now is an audit flag, period. So I would highly recommend that you apply these criteria, review it, make sure you're classifying people properly. If you ever have an IRS audit or a workers' comp issue or unemployment issue with someone that's incorrectly classified, you will not be happy with the penalties and fines associated with restoring and fixing that. So it's easier just to comply. Also, it's a misunderstanding out there and very, very common that the two parties can agree how they want to be treated. That is not how it works. The IRS Department of Labor makes those rules, and you cannot overcome or decide not to comply just because you both agree you prefer to do it a different way. So again, that is a misunderstanding. I've heard it many times in my career. So just check on it. I'm assuming with a brand new final rule that they'll probably increase their audit frequency and expand. I mean, that's how new rules work, right? People put out new rules and now they're going to go audit to see if folks are doing what we asked them to do. So just raising the flag with the new NEC and the new final rule. Just do your due diligence there. With that being said, the next item is the 1099 NEC and the 1099 miscellaneous. I'm praying that you all were aware of this new 1099. Non-employee compensation is what NEC stands for. What they've basically done is they've lifted what used to be in box 7 as non-employee compensation, took it off the 1099 miscellaneous, and moved it to the 1099 NEC. Well, the 1099 NEC was due yesterday, and there's late payment penalties for each form that's late. So these are due to your, I guess, to your providers or maybe even to the IRS. I don't know for sure on that. Again, I'm not, maybe one of you guys that are, one of you CPAs on here can straighten me out on this, on the NEC's due date. I do know it was February 1st. I just can't tell if that was to the recipient or to the IRS also. But anyways, if you didn't realize there was a new form and you go to do your 1099 miscellaneouses, which are due March 1st, you're going to be bitterly disappointed because you're like, whoa, wait a minute. What happened to box 7? There's a check box there now. It's not even a form. And there's not a form to fill out. What am I trying to say? An area section. And then you start searching the form. You're like, well, I don't even see non-employee compensation on here anywhere. Well, that's because they moved it to a brand new form and it was already due. So make sure that you are aware of this. I apologize for not bringing it to your attention sooner. I just saw it in some email. I get a ton of email newsletters to try and keep up with things. It popped up in something I was reading. I'm like, oh, Lordy, I never even heard of that form before. So the other issue I would say is a lot of folks do this wrong as well. 1099 miscellaneouses, you should not be putting, if you pay an independent contractor for services, it should not go in box 3 as other income. It should have gone in box 7 as non-employee compensation, because that means they have to pay self-employment tax and they have to file a Schedule C or an other business tax return. Other income is not independent contractor payments. So if you're going to fill your 1099s out, let's say you are late on the NECs and you figure the best thing to do is just make do and report it on the 1099 miscellaneous still, which I do not recommend, but you may choose to do that. If you put it in box 3, so be it, but you got to get that corrected at some point, because again, you're setting yourself up for problems. Another thing that's come to my attention is a lot of confusion, and we're going to have to issue a guide or something on this. There's some misunderstanding out there and some inconsistencies in how family support payments are treated as far as tax reporting. Family support payments are not 1099 reportable. So if you have some of our family support money, our state-funded family support, and you're paying that to a family, they should not get 1099 on that. Never should have. They have called a general welfare exclusion, and it's very clear in the regs and the code that is not a taxable, reportable item. So the problem is, if you start reporting all this stuff to your families and they don't report it on their income tax, they're going to get in trouble with the IRS. If they do report it on their income tax, they're paying tax they shouldn't be paying. The other issue is, I've heard that some boards are issuing 1099s to their foster care CTH1 caregivers. Those also are exempt, and very clear in the regs. Foster care payments are not taxable income and are not reportable on a 1099. So if you're doing that, you need to issue voided 1099s to those people so that they don't get in trouble before you file with the IRS. All you would do is mark void on your 1098 and your 1096 and whatever the form numbers are. I got rusty. You would mark voided on there, and that way when it goes through them, they just will disregard that, and then the person you issued the 1099 can just tear it up. They just don't do anything with it. Now, another point of clarity that I think folks may not realize is if you have a CTH1 respite if you have a CTH1 foster parent, and they provide respite to another foster parent in their home, that is taxable income and should be reported. To reiterate, if I'm a CTH1 caregiver, anyone that lives in my home that I care for and any payments associated with that are not taxable. The minute I bring someone else into my home that is not one of those foster folks, I am in a taxable situation. So you should be reporting that on your payroll or through a 1099, but you would have to go through and make that decision, which is the most appropriate. Also, I've also heard just recently that we've got boards out there issuing 1099s to respite and companions sitters. Again, very, very clear. 1099s never go to a respite caregiver, because if the wait a minute, let me back up. I might have to qualify that. If the respite caregiver is the first hurdle you have to clear is who has the obligation to report to the IRS for the caregiver. Is it the family or is it the board? That is decided based on who selects the caregiver. So if the family selects the caregiver and the caregiver provides care in that family's home, that's an employment arrangement and they should be issued a W-2. If it's outside the family's home and it's in the caregiver's home, then they should be issued a 1099. But according to the 1099 rules, families are not in a trade or business, and only trade or businesses are required to issue 1099s. So it gets very complicated, but in a nutshell, if you're issuing 1099s to respite sitters, contact us and let's work through how to get that fixed, because that really shouldn't be happening. That was a lot of tax advice, I know, which we really shouldn't be doing much of here, but I just realized there's a lot of misinformation out there. Directive 200-01 DD is approved by the Finance and Audit Committee. It will go to the Commission on the 18th. Assuming they're going to pass it, I don't anticipate any issues. That'll be released on the 18th, and what we want you to do is go ahead and be reviewing that directive. It's out there. We did get one public comment, and I think it was a confusion on the way the language was. It's really hard to read those marked up directives like that. But basically, the only question we got was, so if you have cash that you're maintaining in the facility for a consumer and you're issuing them their allowance, let's say, does there have to be two staff sign off on that every single time, or only when the consumer's not there? And the answer is only when the consumer's not there. So the way it was interpreted was I've got to have two staff every single time sign off on this thing, and that's just not true. So the issue is you just don't want staff not being witnessed, saying they gave money to the client, and they put it in their pocket. I mean, there's nobody to witness that occurred. So there should always be two people, one staff and the consumer ideally, if not two staff. And that was the only public comment we got. And then I think when you review that directive, you'll like it. Again, we were trying to make it easier for providers. Hopefully you see that when you read it, but we're trying to get you out of an obligation to go in and go through your consumer's drawers and their wallet and their personal effects to identify cash on hand. That to me, that's a real problem, and everybody that here agreed when we talked about revising that directive. So, you still have an obligation to kind of know what they might have so that they're not in there with a bunch of money and losing it, or someone stealing it from them, or this misplacing it. But, that awareness is all we're expecting at this point. So hopefully you'll find that beneficial. All right. Insurance premiums for state-owned provider-operated facilities. I'm going to let Debbie talk about this. This is a 305 DD, was changed back in, I think, June. The fiscal year flipped over. And in that directive, if you look at page 1, it says, until such time properties are deeded to providers, any premiums incurred by DSN relating to insuring the properties will be billed to and reimbursed by providers. So we have all these properties covered by Insurance Reserve Fund. Debbie went through and her team and identified all the properties, and I'll let you pick it up from there, Debbie, if you can speak to kind of what y'all did to accumulate the data, when you took it out of their checks, and just all that, so they understand what that's all about.
Came out the beginning of January, and it only affects the boards that have DDSN-owned facilities, of course. What was utilized was the most current annual premium at the time at June 30, July 1st. That's the actual premium that DDSN paid. It was calculated out to a monthly premium, and then that monthly premium was multiplied times a half a year from July through December. And then the premium that we just paid in December for this year was added on for the whole year. So it's about 18 months worth. The only areas that didn't.
Is that for every single one, though? Some due to timing. Okay.
Okay. Anybody in the coastal region that was not affected like that, because we don't pay that policy the same. I'm working on that, on getting all of our policies into one policy, but that's not going to happen until July. So coastal region homes will, Charleston and Hampton and Orangeburg and so forth, will get another premium when the premium comes due in July.
All right. The reason we did the way we did it is for the premiums that were paid before July 1st, basically we already put the cash out, and those months were your responsibility. And then when the new premium came in, we asked internally, should we prorate this since it's only covers part of the fiscal year we're in? And I said no, because if they were insuring this property on their own insurance, they'd be expected to pay the annual premium when the bill showed up anyway. So we just need to be consistent. And so that's why we did it. Now, what you sent something with the payment schedules, right?
Yeah. With the payment schedule, you should have received a little form that came with it that listed each location, the address, and the calculations of each year of the premium.
If you have any
just call me.
Need for anything to back that up, if you want to see the policy or you question the math, call Debbie. She'll be glad to look at it for you. We are human. We do make mistakes. We did look at it. We reviewed it internally before we processed it, but stuff happens. Formula errors happen and so forth. So if you have any questions, do challenge us on that.
Now I want to throw something out there because this hit me a couple weeks ago. Don't forget when you're doing your room and board next year that you can pick that up because you didn't have it before. And it won't be like a regular AP expense. It's going to be something that was on your payment schedule. So you're just going to have to remember it.
There are some comments out there about people having a difficult time with the 10-day review period and not having time to look at things. And I don't disagree. I didn't have any input into that period of time. I would suggest if you have an issue with that you express it either in writing to to Mary or Susan Beck, or, you can do a public comment in the commission meeting, sign up and express that. Because I don't think the intent, I personally don't think the intent is to squelch provider input into things. I think there's just a total lack of understanding of what all you guys have to deal with every day and all the demands on your time. And it is hard to process all that because, if you're sitting as a commissioner, you're really not familiar with everything our boards do. And, you can set up time frames. It's fine if you're sitting around with nothing else to do, or you don't have a vacation scheduled or something. So if you guys have an issue with that, I would recommend you express that and as a group, and maybe we can get that changed. I don't have any opposition to the period being longer. I don't know what period would be reasonable, though. But anyways. All right. Also, by the other point I would like to make, even if you miss the comment period, you can still comment on our directives. So every single one of our directives, if you go to the directive page, has send comment spot. You can comment right now on any directive you want to comment on. Those comments will be aggregated and considered in future revisions of those directives. Now, if something just passed and you're like, shoot, I just missed the comment period. Again, if you guys start bombarding me on this 200-01, let's say, because Colleen Honey monitors that, she sends the comments to me. If we hear a bunch of negative feedback on this or there's issues, we'll take the directive back through again, because we're not trying to issue garbage directives or things that aren't clear or miss the point. So those comments are still valid. Ideally, it'd be great to get all these comments in before this thing gets official and released so that we're not redoing it. But it's not like you don't have a voice and an ability to continue to comment on our directives, even at this point, with it being passed. So anyways, thank you. All right, room board update. We are working really, really hard. I mean, one thing is we had a lot of, we had a delay because of the automatic extension. Then we had a lot of audits that were still past due even at that point. But that's not an excuse for those, because how did that slow you down reviewing the ones you already had? I recognize that. So we got a lot of audits, towards the end of November. We had Christmas break. I had a brand new, entirely new. I mean, like I have all new people in cost analysis. So we had to train and develop our processes on how we wanted to tackle this. So we're slaving away on this. We're really making a lot of progress. We're hoping by February 19th, and we're shooting internally. We have a more aggressive date than that, but that's the date I'm going to give you all. Under promise, over deliver is one of my mantras. So we're going to target that we finish everything by the 19th, and if we get done earlier, then everybody's pleased with that. But what I want to tell you is basically we've just got a lot we're dealing with. So I'm going to give you kind of bird's eye view of the things we've been dealing with that have also slowed us down. First of all, in regards to the audit reports, you wouldn't believe how many audits we got where they didn't add the room board calculation in, but yet they signed a letter saying they complied with the directive. I don't quite get that. If you're going to sign a letter saying I comply with the directive, comply with the directive. It's not that hard. But we got a lot. So no calc at all. We have others where the calculation was just a summary. It was one column. Well, how am I supposed to review room and board? I mean, at that point, I've got to take every house, basically build my own Excel spreadsheet, add all these numbers up on each house, hunt and peck and try and figure out how these numbers were derived. So that was a problem. Again, the directive clearly said to do it by location. We have HUD and non-HUDs being mixed together. We have to figure out how to break those out. We have the wrong number of slots being shown 8-bed CRCS being turned in as 4-bed because they didn't catch that it wasn't a CTH2. Lots of other examples like that. Formula errors, where the math, the division and the totaling isn't right, so we're having to repopulate an Excel spreadsheet to come up with the right numbers. Putting non-allowable cost inside the HUD calculations when the directive only allows 3 items to be in that calculation. People are still throwing in things that aren't allowed in the directive. Cost reports, I've always had an issue in the provider network, and now that I'm here, I can address it. Cost reports are organized in a manner that you have to remove non-allowable room and board. Theoretically, if I have an audit and it's used for my cost reports, and I've identified room and board costs in my cost report that I'm backing out, should that not tie exactly to my room and board calculation if I'm using the same exact data, the same exact definition, the same exact homes? I think we had one provider where these numbers are agreeing. And thank you to that one provider. So we are cross-referencing cost reports that are identifying room and board costs that are missed or duplicated or inconsistently treated. It is part of our cost report review process. We are reviewing at the same time as room and board many cost allocation issues. So we're tracking all those because we're getting ready to do cost allocations next. So we have cost allocation issues that we're dealing with. We have cost report inconsistencies with the audit. And we have basically a history of providers doing things that DDSN has accepted that are not correct. Just to give you some examples there. Admin percentage was not determined properly. Vehicle insurance is in the insurance. Tort insurance is in the insurance. Vehicle depreciation is in the depreciation. Wheelchairs and lift depreciation, which are not room and board items, are in depreciation. Food expenses are not being grossed up for SNAP. So, you'll have $1,000 food expense in a 4-bed CTH2. Well, obviously that's not right. That's just the amount the board paid out of their money. The rest was through EBT. Well, proper GAAP accounting is to gross that up and record a revenue for the EBT. That's just another form of room and board, and gross up that expense. Some providers are doing that, some aren't. And as a result, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you're only reporting $1,000 in food and you're putting that in your rate, then your rate's low. Then you turn around and give them credit for the EBT. You're basically paying them twice for the EBT card. So that's hurting the provider financial position, which, we're here to, as I told the cost analysis team, our main goal is to protect the consumer, not the provider. That's our main job. But in the end, we want to look out for you as well, if we can. So we're pointing out these issues where you are missing cost. And I was reviewing one before I came in this meeting where they didn't put in their telephone costs. They didn't put in their internet. They didn't put in their yard maintenance. I go to the cost report. They have it split out between household and staff, and part of it's being disallowed as room and board, but why isn't it on your calculation then? So on the cost reports, it's required that you turn in your depreciation schedule by location. Most people are turning in their depreciation by asset class. I have no ability to test depreciation when all I do is get depreciation that has a list of vehicles under vehicles and no location. So I can't tell. I have no idea what depreciation is on the audit. That's a requirement. The cost report requires that you turn in a depreciation schedule by location. And we have, I would probably say, 15 that do turn that in, 23 that don't. So we've got a big issue there. Trial balances. People aren't turning in their trial balances. That's also required in the cost reports. Has been from the day I've been doing cost reports in 1990. It's never changed. Some TBs are coming in and they're not by location. We don't know what Department 302 is. If it's not by location and doesn't have the name of the house, we have no way to know. So we've got all these issues that we need to address with the providers, and it's a training issue, and it's a feedback issue. We have got to do a better job here of training you all, educating you on the issues, and setting you up for success. At this point, I don't feel we've done that. So again, I'm not looking negatively on y'all at all. It's really about us. And so as we provide this training, though, that's when it does become about you, because then it's like, gosh, I don't know what else to do other than train them, provide checklists, provide manuals. But at this point, I'm pointing at us, not you. So please don't get your feelings hurt or get mad. I'm just trying to explain to you all the issues we're dealing with. So hopefully with that, you'll understand why we've had the delays. We want to do it right. We don't want to do it wrong and then have the IG come in again and do a huge investigation like we had with HUD several years ago. That was painful. Also, we've had about $5 million recouped from DDSM before I got here because room and board was not done correctly. You can go out and search the internet, South Carolina Medicaid room and board payback or something like that. 2 times. They hit us once. It was like $3 million. Then they came back for a follow-up and hit us for another $1 million. Well, from what I'm seeing, we're still got problems. So they could hit us again if they wanted to right now, and we would be guilty. So right now we've got 12 boards approved. We've got 31 entities in review. We've got private providers also that we're having a review. We've got 11 boards that still haven't turned in their cost reports, and we have 3 boards that are still missing their audit reports. So that makes it pretty hard to review those 11 and 3 when we're missing what we need to validate. So that is an update on room and board. Cost allocation plans. Oh, by the way, Diane couldn't be here today. If you're wondering why I'm talking about these, Diane had to take care of a family matter. Cost allocation plans are right behind these room and board. As soon as we get done with them, we'll crank that up, and we'll create probably some trainings and stuff off of that as well. But we just can't get to that right now with everything else going on. But I'm hoping in March you'll start hearing some feedback in that area. Item 23, I don't know if you all can see all the communication channels on your side in SPM. So in SPM we have chief financial officers. But if you look at the executive directors, we have our CEOs, we have EDs, DSM boards, and EDs privates. So when I go to send out anything, and I need my CFOs to get it, basically I'm hitting every private provider with this stuff that they don't even need to. It causes a bunch of confusion. Does this apply to me? Do I ignore this? Well, I could go through 200 email addresses and try and identify those CFOs that are private providers and delete them out of there so only the boards get it. Or I can just send it and hope they can figure out, or that I put in the email or the memo that it doesn't apply to them. But I can communicate directly with EDs, whether they're privates or DSM boards. So that's been a problem that I haven't liked since I've been here. So I've got IT to split the CFO channel into 2 channels. So if you look at it now, if you go into your Jedi or whatever it is where you go in and assign people, I guess it might even be in SPM, I can't remember. But anyways, wherever you add people to the channels, you can see now that there's a CFO's DSM boards and CFO's privates. If you would do me a favor and go in, have your person go in and move your CFO folks to the right bucket, we're going to delete that other channel. I'll probably give it 30 days, but I need you to go in because that's a huge chore for me to do. I have to go into each, basically what I have to do it is open up each provider, go to key employees, find the employee that I think is the finance person, because it doesn't tell you what SPM channel they're in until you drill into the person. I mean, it would take me literally weeks just of doing nothing but that. So I really need to ask you all to do that. So if you will go in and move your CFOs to the proper bucket, I would appreciate it. What I will do before we delete that other channel is I will send a broadcast email to everyone in that channel to say, hey, you're still in this channel. Can you please, move yourself to the correct channel? If it's only a handful of people, I'll just do it myself. So that's that. Hopefully that'll help clear up some communications and not confuse so many people. EVV, just want to update you there. There's a lot of buzz going around on that. So the 21st Century Cures Act, CURES, was passed. I don't remember what year that was passed in, but as a federal thing, and all states were required to implement EVV by the beginning of this calendar year. So when we got here, DDSN really hadn't had a strategy. They were looking at TheraP, and they were looking at matching up with HHS and tailgating with them. So when I got I'm over IT now as well. So we got involved. Pat and I and Mary and all were looking with IT, trying to figure out which direction to head. We met with HHS. Really makes all the sense in the world to join them in their strategy for lots and lots of reasons. Mary used the term provider abrasion. There's a real consideration there, and I think that is kind of the cornerstone of why we chose what we chose. But electronic visit verification is basically a time and attendance system, and it's required for certain services we offer. And HHS, I have a letter here from the feds to Thomas Phillip, who's our new interim director at South Carolina HHS. You're basically stating that whatever they submitted to them stated that we are intended to become compliant by July 1st. Well, that's news to me. When we talked to Josh Baker, we were told we were going to try and do it by the end of the calendar year and as early as possible. Prior to that made sense. So we met with Mr. Phillip Monday. He's supposed to let us know how in stone that date is, because they don't really know. And so the issue we have is it's a lot of changes that we have to bring in when we do this to become compliant. The system they've chosen, if you want to write it down and go Google it, if you want to go look and see what we're going to be using, it's First Data's Authenticator. First Data Authenticator. It's really a cool system. It really helps. To me, my main concern was what if a person doesn't have a cell phone or they don't have internet access or a data plan or what have you. They've got all that figured out. It's really cool how it works. So I think it's a good system. I can't tell you when it's going to hit you all. All I can tell you is we will keep you abreast. We're along for the ride like you are. We have to go at HHS's pace, and best we can do is advocate for our provider network and try to ensure that we don't move too quick, too fast, without really being thoughtful about everything we're doing. So anyways, just want to let you know about that. And I can't really speak to the regional, the district payrolls we have going right now with Charles Lee and Jasper. That's an undecided issue at this point. One of the things, one option is utilizing HHS's payroll provider that already does payroll for them through this same system and do it for the entire state, so nobody has to run their own agent payrolls or anything anymore. We just pick all that up here and pay for it, which is real appealing to me. Or everybody keeps doing what they're doing now and you just get automated time and attendance data and you continue processing payroll like you do now, and that would mean that the district payrolls would continue to exist. Now, that decision has not been made yet. We have to look at the cost factor, I'm sure, as it relates to that payroll service, and that'll be a deciding factor. Ben, is there anything I need to answer, or do you have it under control there with your answer?
I think EVV-wise, it's just the at-home services, respite, personal care, nursing, attendant care, things like that.
Gotcha.
There was a comment from Laura about the SPM, but I think it's more comment than question.
SLP. Yeah, do you want to speak to EVV at all? Because you're kind of involved in this knee deep as well.
I mean, only that it's going to take a while to roll out, and we're still ironing out the details. But the idea was that it wouldn't change a whole lot for case managers or really our providers, because not many of them do that care. There will be some in terms of the respite and companion side, but we'll get it information as we can, and as we get it, we're still working on the details.
Okay. And since you're up next, do you want to go ahead and keep talking?
Sure.
Update us on the provider orientation project.
Sure. We've recently, over the last several months, we've been working on a new onboarding and orientation process for providers. We've realized as people have come and gone through our agency, the knowledge transfer of how new providers come into our system, and then kind of the general orientation process got very piecemeal, very shattered and fragmented. So me and the team, mostly my team, has done a lot of work with getting all the different pieces from all the different departments and kind of putting them together into one orientation. That's a big 1,000-foot orientation, just big, what is DDSN? And it's continually being refined. But the ultimate goal is that we'll have this at least once a quarter for new providers, and then any providers existing that want to kind of see it again, just to get the kind of big picture context for DDSN. And then it has breakout sections for each service line in the afternoons, and then they will time them so that they are followed closely by finances trainings that they do every quarter, and then the case management training. So the idea is to have a regularly scheduled sort of training progression that can happen if you want to have new staff or somebody attend these sessions. So be on the lookout for more information on that later this year as we continue to refine and get those scheduled.
Yeah, and Ben, how much do you know about the SharePoint site for providers that Mike was talking about?
I know we are looking to revise and change how providers can get information. As you know, or may or may not know, the tool we use for reporting is kind of outdated. I'm sure it's all your favorite tool that we have here at DDSN, that R2D2 is so useful. Sarcasm. But we're looking to change a lot of that, as Chris mentioned, with Microsoft Business Intelligence, but we're going to combine that with SharePoint. At least that's the plan at this point, so that providers will actually have their own login. And when they log in, it will kind of have their own information right there, kind of a SharePoint page that they can create themselves, is my understanding, and kind of customize. So it'll be a different user experience, but we really hope it'll be a lot more user-friendly, a lot more easier to use, and customized to what you guys do, so that it doesn't get kind of bogged down with the stuff that is not pertinent to your areas.
Yeah, and also like a new provider portal, if you will, so that you're not having to go all over the God's green earth looking for stuff and trying to figure out where to get things. Almost like a library concept with all the forms and everything you need in that one location. So we're working on developing that as well. We're trying to move the needle where you don't have to, we got stuff now on our website. We have stuff on Business Tools. We have stuff, I don't know, you might have to email Joyce to get something, email Ben or Lori to get something. Anyways, it's just really all over the place. So we are working on that. We're excited about that project. Hopefully you'll start seeing some stuff on that, I would imagine, in the next 6 months, definitely before December. But I think we've got a lot of positive things going on. We're trying to get DSN where we're a little bit easier to do business with. And this orientation is a big piece of that too. Ben, that thing is like a multi-day thing, isn't it? Or I'm trying to remember. There's a bunch of concurrent sessions, and so
Yeah,
this is all conceptual right now, right?
right. We did one kind of rough run, but it helped us see a lot of things we need to change. So yeah, it'll probably be one day that's kind of a big overview, and probably have to be a second day that has a more service line specific information, because you can't get into any sort of depth and any sort of capacity in one day. You got to really hit the broad, give you a skeleton for DDSN, and then you fill in the meat in other sessions.
Okay. So I think you all will find that helpful. Thank you, Ben. All right. And Debbie, do you want to talk about the state funded community supports calculator?
Just that I'll have it out there probably tomorrow.
The cap went up. The cap and the rates in the calculator changed with the fee for service flip.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got an Excel spreadsheet I guess you all use.
It's just that one-page form for the calculator where you put the total amount of the payment for the year, and then you put the date when the person starts, and it calculates out what they're entitled to.
All right. And the website, getting the rates out officially that you all got in draft form, I need to go back and see how Chuck and Tom issued those rates. Well, actually, I've done it once myself, but maybe it needs to go out as a memo as well. But we plan on putting those updated funding bands and rates on our webpage. There's a site just for rates, but then also, it'll be on our finance and audit resources page as well. And then I guess I do need to send a memo out with all that information. So we will get that out to you, or have it published here soon, so that you'll have that official information available. And with that was everything on our agenda. So if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, or chat it in the box here, we can take a text question. I'll give you a couple minutes to speak up. Does anybody on DDSN's team have anything to add that's online? Because I know we got some of our folks attending remotely.
Hey, Chris, this is Elizabeth. I have a quick question, just a clarification on the SPM channel. I was writing notes on that. What channel, what bucket are we moving the CFOs to now? I mean, it's a separate SPM module?
So, when you go and when you add your employees, you have to identify what channel you want them in for communications.
Right.
In the past, the only channel you had was chief financial officers.
Okay.
Right now, you have that channel still, because I haven't deleted it yet, but I created 2 new ones. Chief financial officers for DSM boards and chief financial officer for private providers. Okay. And I just need you to move your finance people to the correct bucket.
Great.
So that when
Thank
we
you.
go, my frustration has been trying to communicate. I know for a fact I don't need to send this to private providers, but I have no mechanism not to. And so splitting this out will help avoid a lot of confusion.
Got you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Ben's sharing his screen. Can you all see Ben's screen? So you're just simply going in, whoever you have in your CFO channel for your board. You taking off, Debbie? See ya. Okay. Basically, you're going to take them out of the CFO and put them in the proper one of those 2 below it. Thanks for doing that, Ben.
Sure.
we need guidance on how much to charge for admin fees for Respite. All right, so assuming we're talking about waiver Respite that's board billed, you will submit a admin request similar to is done for Husky waiver. If you don't have Husky waiver, then you're not familiar with that process. But you also do it for state funded community supports to get admin paid. So basically, we'll need to get out a communication on that in particular, but you're just going to turn in your cost allocation and income statements and stuff so we can see that the admin you're asking for is what you actually allocated to that department and that it's allocated correctly. And we'll just pay you based on that, whatever is in your statements, as long as it's done properly. All right. Melissa, I wish Debbie wouldn't have left. Why are there amounts for January service dates taken out on the Appendix K for February 1 payment? So what Melissa's saying is we were supposed to split the payrolls, and we had, Ben, how many internal meetings have we had about Bambi and I? 25 maybe?
Feels like more than that, but maybe.
So we failed on this side. Despite every effort made and being very clear with people that actually do this job, this split did not occur. So what Debbie has done is she's already, her and her team have gone in and split the in-home supports between December and January, and she's reimbursing all the providers for the in-home supports funds for January that should not have been taken from you. I apologize for that. I don't know what else I could have done other than observe the steps one by one and ensure they were done correctly. I'm not going to micromanage like that unless I really have to. We can fix this. It has been fixed. If you want to know the timing of, that's why I wish Debbie was still here. If you want to know the timing of when you're going to get that money back, you can email Debbie and ask her. But yeah, they picked up on that. I think I'll give Dean Red a shout out. He caught it first and asked about it, and yeah, it was just a big mistake on our part. So sorry about that. And thanks for mentioning it because we want this done properly. We're not trying to take advantage of anything. Anyone else? All right, don't forget we have a 4 o'clock open mic session is what I have called it, for lack of a better term. It's just a help session, if you will. Anyone that has specific questions, please feel free to join us. I sent an email out with all of those links. They were, I didn't send out an invite for each session. I sent out an email with each session within the body of the email. So please join us if you have questions, and thank you for all you're doing. Take care.